going on, everybody? Welcome into the Tuesday morning edition of the Daily Dime here at FTNFantasy.com. No Alex Blickle today, so you just get me, Zac Graham, Kawaisenberg, DFS, ready to talk about the two games we have here on Tuesday night, quarterfinals of the NBA Cup tipping off tonight, concluding tomorrow, and then hopefully getting back to a more regular type of schedule in terms of the number of games. Just 3 on Thursday. Again, we talked about on yesterday's stream. A little bit of an odd schedule here this week in the association. Would have been nice if Joe Burrow could have gotten one of those long scrambles off last night. I know that's kind of what the night hinged on with Chase Brown. I think came through pretty early for us. I know there was more props given out on for the Millie last night with Two Gun and Prop and Alex. But let's jump into today because I've got a trio of picks here on Underdog, all from the late night game tonight. Of course, we're starting with Magic at the Bucks. That line has actually come down to Bucks by 7, 215 implied total in the early game. Then in Oklahoma City, Thunder hosting the Mavericks, a rematch of last year's Western Conference semifinal series. 231 implied total there. Thunder 4.5-point favorites. Injury report wise, again, with the short schedule and no back-to-backs, it does help us a little bit there in terms of our daily dime purposes in that early game on the Magic side. Of course, no Paolo Banchero. Gary Harris is still out. And then Franz Wagner, of course, out at least a month with the torn oblique. John Isaac is also questionable. So that is really the only piece of news we're waiting on from that first game on the Bucks side. Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Marjan Beauchamp are all listed as probable. And then in the second game, no Chet, no Jalen with a Y Williams, right? No J Will. Still, Ousmane Dieng, Dylan Jones, and Adam Flagler are all also out for the Thunder. No Maxi Kleber, no Jaden Hardy, and Q tags on Najee Marshall and PJ Washington on the Mavericks side of things. For what it's worth, I don't know how much it's worth, I would lean that both Najee and PJ play here tonight with that 4.5-point spread. But let's get to some of the props here, and we can pull up the Prize Picks tool here at FTNFantasy.com. We'll get a couple zooms for everybody watching here on the YouTube channel. Again, if you are here, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button on the video. It helps us grow the stream, as does liking and reposting over there on Twitter if you are watching on Twitter. And you can, of course, while we're live here, join in the YouTube comments, in the live chat. We can talk through any sort of props or DFS questions that you may have. But let's get to it here. I'm just going to start at the top of the tool. And I think this is, I am in lockstep here. We're actually going to the top 2 picks, but we're going to start. You can see J-Dub, right? Jalen Williams. 22.5 points is his line on Underdog. I think you can get it at 22 over there on Prize Picks. At least about a half hour ago, you could. We'll see if they may have moved that up. Model has him, Jalen Williams, that is 25.6 points. He's averaging 22 points per game this season and 31.8 minutes per game. Again, Thunder favored by 4.5. And I think this is playing into some of my thought on why I'm rolling with the model on this. The Thunder have only played 9 of their 23 games. Or I should say 9 of their 23 games have been decided by 10 points or less this season. One of those 9, J-Dub got hurt, only played 16 minutes. In the other 8, he averages north of 35 minutes per game and 26.1 points per game in that 8-game sample of, close games down to the wire. So I don't think the model is off base here saying, we've got him projected for 35 minutes here this morning. That was set before I started looking into that. Still a small sample size, just 8 games. But again, I think it points to the idea that the model is onto something here, giving J-Dub, a hair over 3 more points than what his line is set at on Underdog. So over 22.5 points is the first pick here today for Jalen Williams. Now, it is Tuesday. It's an NBA Cup day, so Underdog continues their their new tradition, right, of giving us some surprise promos, as they call it. So you should have a 50% profit boost token in your Underdog accounts today. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, promo code FTN gets you a deposit match bonus. And then if you're over there on Prize Picks, it's Tuesday, so you would think we'll get some tacos here if the first one isn't already posted. I think typically that goes up at noon. So I guess I have the technology here. We could see if one has popped up. We'll get a refresh there on Prize Picks. Yeah, so Giannis, 26.5 points. We will be taking that one on Prize Picks. That's your first taco of the day. But let's move to the second pick here, because it's going to be Daniel Gafford. And we're going to take an over on his points prop. It's at 10 on Prize Picks. It's at 10.5 with a 1.07x multiplier on Underdog. And you can see the model has him right around 12.7 points in this matchup tonight. I believe set at 22 minutes in the FTN projections. He averages 12.7 on the season in 21 minutes per game. So kind of just right around what his averages have been. And I think it would be fair. I'd hear an argument on the idea that those numbers are propped up, or could be propped up a little bit, by him being the starter at the beginning of the season. But even as a starter, like, he only played more than 23.5 minutes in 4 of 12 starts. So like the Derek Lively push to get into the starting lineup, which of course that's how we expect this rotation to continue tonight and going forward. That was already having an effect on him. It's not like he was playing a ton more than that 21 minutes that he's averaging on the season in those 12 games as a starter. Over this number in 14 of his 23 appearances this season. He did have 11 points in his 18 minutes against the Thunder back on November 17th, but you had no Chet Holmgren at that point. Isaiah Hartenstein was not back. So he got a very, very small matchup there, was able to get over this number in just 18 minutes. But if you look at the way the Thunder have been running their rotation since Hartenstein got healthy, he's really playing the beginning, like the first half of all 4 quarters, and then typically closing the game. And with the way they're set up right now, Kenrich Williams has been kind of backing up Isaiah Hartenstein and playing the second half of the first 3 quarters. And that lines up with how, again, things could change here. Like the first thing that comes to mind is that, again, these are knockout games. I think it is more than fair to expect these rotations to extend a little bit tonight for the main guys on all 4 of these teams. Maybe it's a little bit more hectic for the Magic, given how shorthanded they are, but we can talk about that when we get to the DFS slates. I just think Daniel Gafford getting time, again, I think it helps his minutes floor that Maxi Kleber is out, as we already discussed. Like, could Dwight Powell pick up a couple minutes? He could. I'm not budgeting those minutes in for myself right now, nor are the FTN fantasy projections here. So I think Kleber being out helps that minutes floor. And if you get a majority of those minutes, potentially against Kenrich Williams, and some of them will, unless we see Coach Dagnall go completely off the board and in a different direction in terms of how he treats Hartenstein and Kenrich Williams here. Even if it was Jalen Williams, right, playing some more of that backup 5 like we saw him when Hartenstein was still out, I like it for Daniel Gafford here. And again, we're getting that little extra cookie, 1.07x on his points prop of 10.5. Again, model has him for 12.7. That's right at his season averages. So Daniel Gafford, higher than 10.5 points, going to be our second pick there. Third, we're going to stay in this game. Okay, and we're just going to go to Klay Thompson and his points prop. We got to go to the second page. So again, Jalen Williams, higher than 22.5. That's my favorite pick on the day. Daniel Gafford. We're doing these in order of confidence here. Klay Thompson, 12.5 points is his line tonight on Underdog. Projected for just 10.6 points in the model. And here at FTN, he's projected for 25 minutes, which is tied for the most he's played in the 3 games since returning from injury. He's averaging 13 points per game on the season. He's under this number in 10 of his 20 appearances. And again, like I mentioned earlier, these two teams faced off without Chet, without Hartenstein on the Thunder side back in mid-November. Just 5 points on 1 of 11 shooting against the Thunder in that game. And so not only did he already have trouble scoring against this Thunder team and their top 2 or 3 wing depth chart in terms of the defensive end, and now Alex Caruso is back. So it's only gotten stronger. And another thing too, it's like maybe some of the sub 25-minute outings we've seen since returning from injury had to do with somewhat of a minutes limit on Klay Thompson. But he was already trending down minutes-wise headed into the 4-game break that he took, or that he was on the injury report and inactive. He's only played more than 25 minutes and 3 seconds once in his last 8 games. And again, he missed 4 games, but that's dating back to November 12th. So essentially, over the last month, Klay has played 8 games and played more than 25 minutes just once. Again, I also lean that Najee Marshall and PJ Washington are active tonight. I think that can help tamp down the minutes for a guy like Klay Thompson. And we know, dating back to his last year and some change with the Warriors, that he can also just go cold and give you an 0 for 8, a 1 for 13, something like that. You can go back through his game logs this season and see that has happened. And certainly not the defender he once was. So in this knockout scenario, look, it's not like they need Klay's offense to make this thing work in Dallas. They just don't, with Luka and Kyrie and PJ Washington, Najee Marshall spotting up. He could come in under this 25 minutes tonight, but even in the 25 that we've got him projected for here, you can see the model has him for about 10.6 points tonight. So I like taking the under on Klay Thompson's 12.5 points, and that will give us our 3-pick play here this morning. Now, I haven't looked at stocks props, fantasy score props. I will come through the Pick'em Games channel for our FTN Fantasy subscribers and drop any additional picks that I have. I know the model was looking at some steals props that were already posted on Prize Picks. We did not have them yet on Underdog. So I'll drop some of those in if I find them, and I expect to have at least a couple fantasy score stocks and the like. We'll put those into the Pick'em Games channel. Maybe we can only find 1, maybe 2, and then we hit our 3-pick play round robin strategy there on Underdog. But we'll see a little bit here. Early afternoon, we'll get some of those picks in. Let's talk from the DFS side here. Get a refresh on our ownership page here. Hopefully we're not getting the spinning wheel here too long. I guess we could also do this. You're over at FTN Fantasy, a little sneaky. You can just toggle right over to the ownership and GPP scores page. So let's talk about this from a DraftKings perspective first. Let's sort it by GPP score. You can see Lou Dort coming in at the top of this list. Cole Anthony, J Dub, Goga Batadze, and Daniel Gafford round out the 5 players with a double-digit GPP score here on the morning run at FTN Fantasy. Cole Anthony, if you sort by ownership, 63% owned, highest on the slate. And I think that's good chalk, man. I don't know where else Jamal Mosley is going to turn to for additional offense with no Paolo, with no Franz now, right? If we're looking at what Orlando does, like we know, right, unless you haven't been paying attention to the Magic or the NBA as a whole, like we know this is not a good shooting team. And so now you've lost your 2 best offensive weapons, and Gary Harris is out. So Cole Anthony is their best shooter from deep. 2 attempts per game, 34% from 3. Now, right, he's only played 11 minutes per game on the season. DNP-CD'd in plenty of those. But at his price on both sites, I don't see how Mosley gets away from mid-20s in minutes for Cole Anthony. If this game stayed close, he could come close to that 30-minute mark. And given that the cheap price, the scoring ability, the fantasy efficiency that we know Cole Anthony has, right? He's over a fantasy point per minute on DraftKings this season. I think this is good chalk. I think it's necessary chalk unless we see something throughout the day that indicates he will be playing a smaller role than we expect here. Cole Anthony on both sides, to me, good chalk. And Orlando as a whole, right, is the most obvious situation to be trying to mine some value price wise, especially on DraftKings, where like no Paolo, no Franz, and outside of Suggs, who I think just is above the 7K mark on DK, nobody is priced higher than the 5.4K to Goga Batadze. So again, they still have plenty of bodies here where they could kind of cannibalize each other for minutes, especially if John Isaac is there in the front court and nobody looks great at the end of the night. But I think that's where in MME, you're cycling through some of these guys. Similar thoughts on the OKC wings. And even in single entry, you're kind of trying to pick and choose who the best options are to tie your lineup together using some of this magic value, using some of this OKC wing roulette, right? Dort looks great over there on FanDuel. You can see still a 34% projected on here on DraftKings. GPP score up. He was number one, right? See, there's memory not served, the short-term memory not shining here this morning. Dort number one in the GPP scores, but you see J-Dub there. You see Cason Wallace as well, 3,900. I think I still, even though Cason Wallace probably starts this game, Alex Caruso, 3,700, guard forward eligible. I would slightly prefer him to a guy like Cason Wallace, to a guy like Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe. You can see the field as well. Alex Caruso, second in the ownership projections at 53%. Then you got a trio of spend-ups here between 48 and 42%. SGA, Giannis, and Luka. That makes some sense. And to that end, I think the OKC spends look great. You can see the field agrees with Shea being the preferred spend-up on DraftKings here this morning. I also think J-Dub, Jalen Williams, not going ignored, 35%. But you know that the GPP scores love J-Dub tonight. Power forward only 8,700. I do see it here, P-Buck. So Preston saying, how about SGA over 30.5 points? That is another one that the model likes, and I think kind of does play into the idea, right? We should get full minutes out of these OKC studs here today. Preston, I have no problem pairing those two guys together in terms of the OKC, the hubs of their offense tonight in J-Dub and SGA. But at this point of the morning, I think I would be, again, round robining that in, and I would feel better about choosing one or the other. I had that dilemma myself before the stream. I went with J-Dub, kind of tailing the model there and feeling a little bit stronger at his 22.5. But again, that's one the model likes. I will have some SGA over 30.5, I assume, throughout the day as well. Over on FanDuel, let's get a sort here for GPP score. You can see the top four guys, kind of those modestly priced center-only options. Wendell Carter sneaking in there as well as the seventh highest GPP score. So Brolo, Goga Batadze topping the list over there on FanDuel. Then the pair of Mavericks centers. And you're getting, about 2.5 times the ownership on the starter, Derek Lively, for $200 more. That makes some sense, but we know what Daniel Gafford can do from a fantasy point per minute standpoint. So that is a very interesting, for lack of a better term, conundrum over there on FanDuel, I think, is which one of these centers that the model loves in tournaments tonight, which one do you go with? Of course, Brook Lopez standing out right now in the model as the top GPP score over there on FanDuel. OKC getting a ton, if we sort by ownership here, OKC getting a ton of ownership as they should. I will ping the back end guys. I saw that 0% projected ownership on Brook Lopez. So we'll get that ironed out here once the stream ends. But you see J-Dub, 8,900, small and power forward eligible over there. Again, the OKC spends the field. SGA fourth, J-Dub first. You can see Lou Dort and Alex Caruso also in the top 7 here. Then $7,200 Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony at 48. Those guys both picking up more than 50% projected ownership, and Giannis in there as well at 11.9. I do think Bobby Portis, and I thought this might be a little bit sneaky. It's a 2-game slate, so again, you gotta think about these inflated ownership numbers here. But Bobby Portis, 44.5% projected on power forward center eligible. If you don't go Brook Lopez at center, maybe you go Goga, maybe you will go one of the Dallas guys. I don't hate Bobby Portis as some salary relief at 5,900. Again, the Magic, still a good defensive team, but losing their offensive firepower. Maybe you see a little bit more Bobby Portis, or maybe he just, again, goes off against some of these second and third string guys that you will see in this Orlando rotation here. And I do prefer spending up in my placeholder, at least. I had the spend ups at guard. I had SGA in there. Then you can see Luka 11-8. So you're saving $3,400 going down to Kyrie. But I like Luka, and I think 30% projected owned here in a must-win game. You know, we're not NBA playoffs in the spring, but while you're here, you made it to the knockout rounds. I expect all of these teams to attack this as close to a playoff game, right? In these knockout games, this is as close to playoff rotations, I think, as that we will see this season. Any other notes I had here? I think some of the cheaper bucks can make some sense. I mentioned Bobby Portis, Brooke Lopez, and the like. I do think like it's a little tough. Let's sort by small forwards before we get out of here, because I think, and I don't think it's a high probability play, but I don't think it's crazy to play some Chris Middleton on FanDuel tonight. Right? You're not expecting more than 24 or 25 minutes, but the peripheral stats have been there. The shooting efficiency has not. But what has remained is just 2 games back, but we saw it last year when he was playing off the bench and playing some more limited minutes. Chris Middleton, very, very efficient from a point per minute standpoint. You can see there's a huge gap here, right? So I think getting J-Dub in at 8,900 makes a lot of sense at small forward because he projects just in his own tier. But then you see such enthusiasm from the field on Lou Dort at 4,700, Alex Caruso at 5,300. If you're looking to get different, right? If John Isaac plays, I get it. If you want to go to a Klay Thompson, a Tristan Da Silva at 3,800, should be starting, I get it. But I think Chris Middleton makes a little bit of sense if you don't spend up on some of those more expensive bucks with higher projections. Your Giannis, your Dame Lillard, even some of the other front court guys we talked about. Again, this is not somebody I'm putting in first to my lineups, but especially if you're running MME over there on FanDuel, I think Middleton could make some sense given the lack of standout options at small forward, right? You really got to include these dual position eligible guys. So you take those out, right? This isn't filtering right now. So, but you get my point if you go over there and look at FanDuel and the offerings at small forward. So I don't see any other questions. Again, just a 2-game slate. Alex should be back with me tomorrow, another 2-gamer, right? Tomorrow we're looking at the Eastern Conference game, Hawks at Knicks. So Trae Young back in the Garden. Looking forward to that one from a third-party perspective. Then Warriors at Rockets to close out the quarterfinals there on Wednesday. Excited for that. Excited for this slate tonight. Like I said, for our FTN Fantasy subscribers, you can jump in that Pick'em Games channel throughout the day. I'll be dropping in any additional picks that I find. And of course, our subscribers also jumping in the NBA DFS channel throughout the day and leading up to lock. I appreciate you all tuning in, sticking with me here on the Tuesday edition of the Daily Dime. Like I said, back tomorrow, same time, same place. Myself and Alex breaking down tomorrow's 2-game NBA slate. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.